In today's video, I will be sharing 5 useful tips to instantly improve your pace on F125. Whether you are struggling to rotate the car, get the power down on exit, or just lack overall pace, these tips will help you transform your pace on track. So let's dive right in. So for the first tip, we are looking at the tire temperatures in qualifying. As you can see on the bottom right of your screen, we're starting our lap here in Melbourne, and we've got over 80 on the left degrees Celsius and 76 and 79 on the right. And as we make our way through the lap here, we're basically using identical conditions, identical setup. So we eliminate those parameters where it could go wrong. But then heading through the last sector, you can see the tire temp starting to overheat, 93 degrees Celsius, 94 now on the rear left. And through the last corner, we actually get a snap as well. And yeah, the tire temperatures being very, very high does not help, because that means we lose grip at the end. And we set a 1 minute 15.4 on this lap. For our second attempt then, heading on to the out lap, you can see straight away we're taking it very, very cautiously, very safe. No aggressive turn in, no aggressive inputs, to try and keep the tire temperatures as low as possible. So by the time we start our lap, you can see in the low to mid 60s for the Celsius, 61 on the front right. It's actually blue, but as you'll find out, that is exactly what we're looking for. So starting the lap, well, heading to the last sector, before we were in the 90s already, now we're 70s and rear left is on 80. And what this enables us is that it just gives us so much more grip in this mechanical last sector. Of course, it'll be more beneficial on some tracks than others, but you can see especially on this exit on the last corner, we gain a 10th on the delta without the slide. So if you just take care of your tire temperatures on your out lap, you will gain so much time. We improve by 4/10. So make sure from today on, always make sure your tire temperatures are at least below 70 heading onto your flat hot lap. And then talking about hot lap, our second tip is to never use the hot lap ERS mode. This time we're here in Miami and we have the hot lap mode enabled, and it's basically useless pretty much, because it uses too much percentage and doesn't give enough gain, and it makes braking very difficult. You can see I'm struggling on throttle there, and through this flat out, or not flat out, but high speed section coming up, I have to lift a lot, and the rear end of the car just wants to step out. You can see multiple corrections pretty much in every corner, which is a pain to drive really. At 29.16 sector 1, and then heading through the low speed here, the hot lap mode hurts even more because you've got way too much power and you can't really use it because the acceleration zones are so short. And then we've got the next braking zone, so yeah, it's really not ideal, but nonetheless we do a lap anyway. We've got a 1 minute 009 split, and then one last corner to go. Again, you can just hear plenty of wheel spin as you try and get the power down out of the last corner across the line. It's going to be a 1 minute 25.897, and now we're going to be using medium on this lap, and you can see straight away braking is better, and then through here we gain so much time, and we're 1.5 tenths up purely because I just get more traction and don't have instant wheel spin when I try to accelerate. Through this section then we can actually commit, and you can just see how the delta is skyrocketing because I don't have to think about saving the car. I can actually focus on driving and turning into the corners, and we're 2.5 tenths up after sector 1, and arguably sector 1 is mostly flat, so we should be gaining loads there. And then through this section we'll gain even more. You can see on throttle the delta climbs over 4 tenths advantage. We nail the second apex of the chicane and gain even more time. Make a bit of a mistake there, but we're nearly half a second up already, which just shows. And what also helps is that having ran medium, we've got so much more overtake to use on this back straight, so we gain even more on the straight. Brake at the 100 meter board for the last corner, little slide and rear lock, but we still gain time. That just shows how slow the hot lap mode was. And we come across the line and improve by half a second, so please never use hot lap mode in any qualifying or race ever again. My third tip is track usage. So as we can see on the left, we've got a partial track usage, and on the right, full track usage. And you'll see going through the lap, they're synced, so they started at the exact same time, but in the end, the lap on the right will be 1.4 seconds faster, sorry. And pretty much every entry, every apex, and every exit. On the left, we only use part of the curb, as the name suggests, partial track usage. And on the right, we always maximize it all the way up to the white line. I know there is a risk that you invalidate your lap or get a track limit warning, but if you can get used to this, and you've done enough laps of practice and are comfortable being on the limit, then this will gain you 1.5 seconds of free lap time, where you don't need to figure out any setups, don't need to do anything else. There's really nothing you need to find or add. You just need to use more of the track because it enables you to carry more speed. And now you can already visually see the difference, how far ahead the lap or the car on the right is. Qatar is an extreme example, but for example Canada or Austria, for example, you can gain at least half a second, I'd say, on every single track. So up to the line, full track is a 121.01 and a 122.4. So I encourage you to try and get comfortable using track limits, because that is an absolute vital tool to maximize your lap time. So for the fourth tip, we've got intermediates versus the wet tire. On last year's game, the wet tire was absolutely useless, potentially in torrential rain in qualifying. In qualifying, it could be used if it didn't become dry, but the issue is that the more cars run, well, then there's a dry line forming, and as soon as the dry line forms, you kind of have to be on an intermediate, because the wet tire will start to overheat, and once the wet tire starts to overheat, you just have absolutely no grip, and there's kind of nothing you can do about it. It's really painful. So even if it's wet, you prefer starting on inters, because once a dry line is formed a few laps in, you're just so much faster. You can see in this example of the Ironman League, the top 5 on wets got to the front in 3 laps and had some gaps as well. But then by the time you reach lap 7, they had to make their pit stops because they were losing multiple seconds per lap. There was no point staying out, and that's a whole pit stop gone, which you're not able to gain. You might be able to gain 5 seconds, or maybe even 10 if you're on a track like Spa on heavy rain, but you're never going to gain a pit stop. So please always use the intermediates, at least in the race. In qualifying you have to judge it, but mostly the inters are faster at the end of quali. Simply because of the dry line that forms. So yeah, please never use wets, it's just ruining your own race. And then the last tip I have is that smooth steering wins the race. For this, I'm gonna do 2 7-lap stints here at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi in an equal performance Alpine. And the first stint, I will just try and drive as safely as possible, and what I mean by that is, for example, into this corner, brake nice and early, no aggressive downshifts, coast the car into the corner in a way and not go straight for the apex as I would in qualifying. You can see here again, very conservative braking zone and turning to make sure I can save the tires, and just be very cautious with everything really. There's no need to fully attack every apex. So you can see by the end of lap 1 on mediums we have 3, 4, 5 and 6% tire wear. As you can see here, another example, very cautious turn in qualifying, or especially in last year's game, you would see that people would crank on a ton of wheel lock on the steering wheel to get the initial turn in, but that on this year's game doesn't work anymore because you get loads of tire wear. You can see towards the end of lap number 4 then we have 26% tire wear on the rear right already. The rear right is the main issue or tire on this track, so we're going to be keeping an eye out on that mainly. But yeah, we just keep going. You can see lap 7, for example, another example, the hairpin. I don't fully brake as late as I can, I don't turn in as aggressively as I can, and I go nice and safe on the throttle. And by the end of lap number 7, we're on 47% tire wear, and the front right is only on 37. That shows how cautious I've driven. So a decent stint. This would enable us to do a one stop as well, and you can see the lap times pretty decent. Don't mean much yet before we compare them, but let's do another 7 lap stint, same setup, same fuel, realistic equal car performance in the Alpine yet again, and this time we're gonna drive really aggressively. By that I mean absolutely sending it into every apex and hoping the car sticks. And you can see really pushing it, as you'll see in this last sector, cranking in the steering and just being really aggressive on all the inputs, really braking, throttle, turning, all of that really. And you could see the tire wear already booming up to 9%, which is way higher than we already had. We had 47% in 7 laps, and now we're already on 9%. The first lap was half a second faster, to be fair, but is it worth the tire wear? That is the question. Bit of a slide on the exit of turn 1. Then into the hairpin, you can see this time we put in tons of lock, try and be aggressive on throttle, but we just slide really. We've got 13% already, and we're halfway through lap number 2. End of lap number 3 already on 27%, which is absolutely insane, as we were on 26% at the end of lap number 4 on the safe driving stint. So this just shows how much you can gain. 28% on the exit of turn 1, and here, for example, full lock into the chicane, and then it's just a mess really, the way we drive. If you're over aggressive and think it's last game, it's just a huge mess. 35% at the end of lap number 4 is insanely high tire wear. You could see again sending it into the apex. This is the end of lap number 7, and we already have 58% on the rear right, which is already 11% more than we had on the safe driving stint, and we're still gonna go at it. You can see sliding around, have to counter steer. We lose so much time. 59% now as we hit through the last 2 corners. 60% just 7 laps into this race, around the last corner, and we have so much more tire wear. The front right as well above 50%, while we only had 37 on the safe driving stint. And you can see on the right are the lap times of the aggressive driving, and on the left of the safe, and there's basically no difference. I mean, we were literally faster on the safe driving, and we had 15% less tire wear, which means we could have done the 1 stop. With the aggressive driving style, we would have had to do a 2 stop, which just shows there's absolutely no point driving aggressive. So if you're able to notice yourself driving your aggressively, then try drive slowly. It feels really slow, but in the end it's faster, and all of us want to be the fastest on track and gain every last thousandth that we can. So that was it with this 5 tips video. If you did enjoy and want to support me, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, from me, it's take care and goodbye.